Hello, friends. This is Mike Williams, the host of the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. I recently had the pleasure of joining RBN host Anita Whitney on her podcast to discuss how the music industry is controlled and used by the elites to manipulate the mass consciousness in order to achieve their agenda. During the show, we did experience Skype connection issues, and so the show has been edited in order to address the audio problems. In fact, we ultimately switched over to using the phone to finish the conversation. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and thanks for listening.
Well, I have to apologize tonight. There seems to be some difficulty with RBN and Skype, but thank goodness they got it fixed. That's why we had a delay. Apparently they couldn't get to me and I couldn't get to them, but we've got it worked out for now. And I'm happy because I have a wonderful guest that I've invited on the show. I spoke with him earlier this week, and I was reminded of the amount of knowledge that he has acquired over many, many years, many topics. He's just wonderful to talk to. His name is Mike Williams. He has his own website, Sage of Quay Radio, and he does interviews. He's interviewed some of the people on RBN, like Deanna Spingola, and many other really well-known people have been interviewed by Mike, and he posts it on his website as podcasts. So you might want to check that out. He's got some great stuff there. A lot of information. He also sends out a daily newsletter with multiple links to short videos that is just a joy to get every day. I look forward to it. Actually, every morning I get an email from Sage of Quay, and I look to see what Mike has put together to send out. And generally, there's at least one or two things that I'm just really eager to look at. And it's a nice way to start your day. His profession is hypnotherapy. Mike is a professional hypnotherapist, which at some point in the future, I'd like to have him back on and talk about that, because there's a lot more to that than most people understand. And he is also a musician, and that's why I invited him on to talk tonight. I have recognized, I think most of the listeners have recognized that when we were younger, the music seemed to speak to us. There seemed to be a better tune, better lyrics. And as of the last, 10, 20 years, the music is just getting more and more disgusting. I don't think it's just that our tastes have changed. I think the music has changed, and Mike has come to the same conclusion. He's looked into it a lot closer than I have, and his observations, I think, are right on. When he used the term in our phone conversation, organic music, it just absolutely made perfect sense to me. So I'd like to invite Mike. Have we got Mike with us?
I'm here, Anita. Yes.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Yes, Mike, I'd like to let you tell the people about what you learned about the history of our pop music. And maybe you could start with defining organic music, because I thought that was such an important term.
Well, organic music is music that comes from the individual's creativity and their imagination. In other words, it's not tampered with. It doesn't have somebody else telling you how it should sound and how long this song should be, and you should play to this audience or that audience. So in other words, it's not some kind of marketing strategy. Organic music is music that comes from the heart, and it comes from the musician's own personal creativity and imagination, and it just flows. And when we spoke earlier about that, what I was saying is that we have very, very little, if none of it, in the pop music culture today. Basically, we have zero.
And tell us how that came about. I mean, that certainly it wasn't always that way. I mean, I've been down to New Orleans and listened to some of the people who've been there for generations. I mean, I don't think it was always like this. When do you think this all changed?
It all changed. Well, we still have organic music today. So let me just back up a second. We still have it. So if you go down to New Orleans as an example and you listen to the bands on the street and so on, that's organic. What I'm referring to is the mass marketed music, the pop music that we hear on the radio, hip hop, rap, all the genres today that are popular on the radio, popular with music award shows, those types of venues. all of that is not organic. That is all engineered and that's all manufactured. And when it all started is when I say they, I'm talking about the controllers, those that control, when they were able to make money off of it. So anytime there is that moment of realization when they can market something, they can sell something, because we live in a system of commerce. I know you know this. Anytime they can make money, they're going to jump in and they're going to capitalize on it and they're going to own and control it. It's not just the music industry. We can also take a look at the entertainment industry like Hollywood. It's the same thing. So from my perspective, it really, really started getting going in the 1960s. And it was controlled in the 1950s too. All the bands that people were listening to back in the 50s, as an example, maybe some of us who are old enough will remember payola. You had to pay the radio stations in order to have your music heard or played on that radio station in order for your music to be on the air. So that has always been in play. But in the 1960s, it really started to change because in the 60s, and maybe even before that with Elvis, it started to really become a social engineering tool. That's what music was being used for, was to social engineer the population and the masses and to drive especially the young people in a certain direction. So essentially it's a constant ongoing experiment.
And I remember, there was Perry Como. I mean, you can look at these old shows and all the parents were watching Perry Como and Janice Page and those things. And all of a sudden in comes Elvis. Yep. And there was a huge divide between children and parent when it came to music. It was like a divorce occurred.
Yeah, it was a big divide, and it was a shocking difference, right? So, like you said, Perry Como, and when I was growing up in the 60s, my parents were listening to Andy Williams and Herb Alpert and, those types of artists. But yeah. Elvis, when he arrived on the scene, it was very sexual with the gyrating hips. And even though today we would look at it and we think it's nothing, right? We'd say, well, that's really big to do about nothing with regard to Elvis. But back then, it was shocking. But when we analyze and we take a look at how the controllers do this, everything, Anita, is done incrementally. It's very methodical. So they start at a certain point. They never dive into the point where it becomes very obvious and so shocking that there is a huge upheaval within the masses. So they start and they introduce, as an example, Elvis. And then after Elvis, it becomes, and we'll just use, big chunks of time here or big moments in time, the Beatles. And then after we get to the Beatles, we get to other artists, David Bowie as an example, which Bowie introduced androgyny to the social consciousness. Transgender was in the I believe it was the 80s with Boy George. And a lot of people, don't connect those dots. So what they do is they introduce it step by step, very incrementally, so that it doesn't, capsize the ship. Once we're 30, 40, 50 years down the line. So it's been 50 years since the Beatles hit the scene. And you take a look back, you can see that a lot has changed. A lot has changed. Oh, yeah. So, but that's the thing. It's very slow moving. It's very incremental so that it just kind of slips in and people assimilate into the change. They adapt to the change. They embrace the change. And then they move on to the next incremental step down the road. And then the same cycle takes root again. And then once that solidifies into the social consciousness, then they move to the next. And that's how it works. And so today, you and I spoke earlier, we can see where music is, where it is today. And it's really a sad state of affairs.
It really is. And I remember when the Rolling Stones came in and Mick Jagger and all of that, my mother was just mortified. She couldn't believe it and wouldn't tolerate it at all. So it was a huge divide between one generation and another. And I don't know that music has ever divided generations historically as much as they did when they brought in hard rock. I mean, that just really split the family right up.
What they do is they want the minds of the young people. So they need to break the young people away from the oversight of the parents. So then now what you have a clash of the generations. It's the parents, the older generation against the newer generation. This has been something that's been going on for, for a very long time. But the problem is the changes that they have been making and where we're at today is very dark. It's just loaded up, bleeding out with occult symbolism and occult ideology. And that's where we're at today. And we see the kids today embracing this, even the sexualization of little children, right? This is being played out in the media. I should say the entertainment, like in the movies and on television. And it's also making its way into, and has made its way into music. This is over-sexualization that's geared toward the young people, and especially it's detrimental, I would say, not only to the boys also, but to young girls.
And it seems like it's such a well-organized plot. And I'll tell you, when you go and look at the clothing that they're selling for young girls.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that? Obviously the designers, everybody's coordinated in this effort. What they see on the screen, what they hear, and then what they go buy is all in unison.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers this. They used to, I haven't seen it so much lately. They used to put on the bottom of the girls' jeans and shorts words like princess right on the butt. Yeah. And I thought that was outrageous.
Yeah, well, they'd have, a couple of years ago, it was pink, right? And that's a reference to the genitalia. They would have that printed across the girl's bottom. People don't pick up on this stuff because they don't understand. They think it's some kind of branding. It's some kind of marketing gimmick for the moment. But none of this stuff that happens is happenstance. Everything that's done, when we're talking about these big multinational corporations and how they market and how they brand, nothing is happenstance. Everything is planned out. It's very strategic. And it's all very much embedded in occult theology.
Well, the parents, I don't think want to face this, do they? I mean, they would rather not face it than tend to struggle at trying to understand why this is all happening in unison, and then try to extricate their child from it. It is extremely difficult, particularly if they're in public school. I mean, they're hearing this music, they're seeing these clothes. Hang in there, Mike. We're going to take a break, and we will take calls with Mike in the second hour. We'll be right back. So, Mike, what impact, not only is this, you're talking about it's got a psychological impact. They're getting these messages, subliminal messages out. What effect does it have on us? I mean, you and I talked, and historically, mankind has taken pleasure in music and found relaxation and joy and beauty. In fact, it's one of those things when you're stressed out, many people will just sit down and listen to beautiful music and it'll just sweep over them. What effect has all this had on us enjoying music?
Well, it's made music less enjoyable from the standpoint of, again, pop music, Anita. Now, there's still plenty of music out there that's available that's very enjoyable, but I'm really focused on the music that is focused on the young people. Yeah. And so this is music that is social engineering. It's music that is geared toward making the children more promiscuous with the lyrics, more aggressive, especially with certain genres like hip hop and rap as an example. And I have some information here that I can take the audience through if you'd like with regard to some research that's been done, especially with regard to rap and hip hop and how it has contributed to behavior, which is not good. So it's got the whole sexualization aspect of it. It has the whole androgyny aspect of it, which again has to do with the theology of the elites. It's just playing into a world which is becoming more and more decadent. And yes, in order to take the world down that more decadent path, you have to get the minds of the young people marching down that road. They're not going to get it by convincing you and I, because you and I are not going to be convinced.
That's true.
Right? We know. So we're not going to accept it. We're going to reject it right out of hand. But the young folks, this is what they do. They grab on to the young and they mold them and they shape them and they condition them. This is what they do.
Obviously, there's a lot of people who are really are interested in still playing music, and you seem to be a part of that group, which I think is wonderful. Is it a group effort that's involved in trying to restore organic music? You see it as a movement?
I see it as, well, it's interesting. See, because the problem is that in order to make it and then, make money at this, you have to be able to land yourself a record contract.
Okay.
And you have to wind up with a label. Now, we know that these record contracts with these labels, as soon as you connect into that, there's going to be issues right away as far as impacting your ability to be your own person, as far as a musician, as far as allowing your creativity and imagination to unleash, because you're going to be constrained by what it is that they're going to want you to do and what they're expecting you to do based upon the terms and conditions of the contract that you've signed. You see?
Okay.
So what's happened is there are a lot of musicians and bands out there that have gone the independent route, the indie route. And so what they're doing is, because the recording equipment that you can have in a home studio today is very advanced. In fact, I have a 24-track digital recorder right behind me. It fits on a small table. So what myself and others are able to do is to record our music, and then we're able to get it out there by essentially self-publishing. Now, the problem with self-publishing is that the music stays whole. In other words, it's untainted by other interests in the corporate entertainment business or the music business, but you don't have the resources to get the broad exposure.
Yeah.
And without the broad exposure and the marketing, then what's going to happen is you're not going to see the types of sales that you would like to see to be able to sustain that work and make a living at it, is how I should probably phrase that, right? So there is a lot of musicians out there today and a lot of bands that are going that indie route, and there's a lot of really good music out there because of it. But the stuff that gets pumped out on the mainstream pipelines, on the radio, on television, via the music award shows and so on, that stuff is completely and totally controlled, engineered, and orchestrated, all of that. So you have these, you have basically these two diverse approaches to this. Those that really want to hit the big time, where you've got to sell your soul, and then there are those that are trying to get their music out, and they're going the independent route. Now, a lot of people who are going down the independent route, they are trying to get a big-time contract, right? So then you have this mishmash of in-between stuff, because those bands and those singers and musicians, what they're trying to do is they're trying to find that spot where the big labels will say, hey, you're down the right path. That's what we want to hear. That's the sound we want to hear. That's what people are listening to. So in other words, they're kind of diverting away from maybe their core selves or their core music in order to placate the music industry so that they can get their shot at stardom. So I guess the point I'm making is it's very diverse. The landscape is very, very diverse. But if you're looking for what I refer to as organic music, it is out there. But you're going to have to look at independent labels, and you're going to have to, go to online to websites like maybe SoundCloud, Mixcloud, stuff like that, where these bands and these singers are posting this stuff.
Whoa. Let's say that over again. I hadn't heard of that. I got my pencil out.
Okay. I'm just using two examples.
Okay, SoundCloud. So let's say I want to hear some good organic music, okay? And I've got my computer. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you can go to SoundCloud. You can, or you can go to Mixcloud, or you can go to Reverb Nation.
I get sick of what they've done to music. I mean, I did not even know about this. And maybe some of the listeners didn't know about this. So I think it's great we're sharing it. And reverberation, just that?
No, Reverb Nation. Reverb Nation. Like guitar reverb. REVERB Nation. ReverbNation.com. And there are many, 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 many musicians and bands on Reverb Nation, all different genres of music. And so you can pick and choose what it is that you'd like to listen to. And there's some fantastic artists that are out there. And, it's a misnomer that the most talented are the ones that you see on TV and the radio. I would say they're probably some of the least talented when you measure it up against the folks that are out there doing independent music.
Well, this is good news to me, Mike. I did not know anything about this. And I'm sick of the horrible music. A lot of us go back to oldies just because we can't stand the music that's out there now. And to find out that there's 3 sources that I can go and find good music is just delightful to me.
Yeah, that is. There's many other sources. You're going to have to hunt and peck a little bit, but you'll find the stuff that's out there. It's all over the web. You just have to look for it. Now, to go back for a second, Anita, to something you asked before we went to the break, you asked about how we can get the kids away from the music and
yes.
How we can get them. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that this is a very complicated solution. It's not an easy solution because there has to be an awakening and an awareness of what is going on. What is going on under the covers. And in order to get that to take traction with the children, I believe that the parents themselves have to wake up.
Right.
There's a lot of parents out there. There's a lot of parents that care. There's no doubt about it. And I know some of these parents. But on the other hand, there's a lot of parents that are asleep at the switch.
Yes.
And they're not paying attention at all to what their kids are doing, never mind the music. But, they're not listening to what the kids are listening to. They don't ask. They don't read the lyrics. Nothing. So you have absentee parents. And some parents might get upset with me saying this, because they're saying, well, Mike, our time is occupied with work. We're working 55, 60 hours a week. We have a 2-family working household. We need 2 incomes in order to maintain the home and all that stuff. So that's where it gets complicated because when we talk about the controllers and we talk about the matrix, they have all the bases covered in order to throw as many obstacles in the way of humanity so that humanity doesn't thrive in a healthy way. I
absolutely agree. Sadly, I agree totally.
Yeah, so that's the problem that we have, and they're constantly inundating the household with these images and with the music. And if it's not in the house and the kids got their earbuds in and they're listening to it on their phones, they're going to concerts. It's pervasive. It's all over the place. But the way we break it down, the way that we hopefully can get people awake and away from this stuff is from shows like this and getting people to wake up. It's a very daunting task. So it's not an easy thing to do because it's, like I said, it's in everybody's face 24/7, 365 days a year.
Well, there's no question about that. Now, frequently when we have get-togethers and we have music going on in the background, and I'm thinking it might, children hear music. I mean, I was raised with a sister who was a classic pianist. Okay, so I heard classic music on the piano every day, all day, frantically. And that became a part of what I enjoy just by hearing it. These kind of independent musicians, they probably don't have a radio station, right? So if I was going to use this, I'm just thinking out loud, Mike, if they're not introduced to something good music, they will never recognize it. I mean, you're saying there's some really good music. Do they have a radio station, or you'd have to put it on the computer and as music when you have them over as guests and you're talking? And
well, there are radio stations on the internet that stream, and there is stations out there that are dedicated to unsigned artists, independent artists, and so on. So you have outlets like that where you can go there and you can dig in and seek out music that resonates with you.
Yes.
So you can do that. So there are vehicles available in order to get to that music. The problem is that we've got to break the stranglehold that the mainstream music industry has on our youth.
Right.
And it is a stranglehold. It's an education and an awareness process.
Well, I don't know about your childhood, but it was truly a stranglehold on me. I mean, I remember it. This was, my gosh, this music was just so fabulous. And my parents didn't have any taste at all, and they were old fashioned. And I just got swept away, with it. Now, do you remember there was a whole folk music era tucked in there somewhere as well?
Yep.
Now, that seemed to be a middle of the road. The older people didn't mind that folk music so much, but that was short lived, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was short lived. That's in the with Joni Mitchell and maybe even to a degree Bob Dylan to a certain degree, right? Dylan was kind of a bridge between that folk music and then heading into rock. Yeah, but it was short lived, and then the advent of the electric guitar. Once you had the bands with the electric guitars and the drums, folk music was kind of pushed aside. It was still there, but it didn't have a presence, not like rock music as we know it today.
Well, and I remember when, if you look at the pictures of Kiss, I mean, how obscene were they?
Right.
And they had a huge following, and to me, just looking at them, that was just pure obscenity. Their music was obscenity, and so were they.
Kiss, everything about Kiss was what we're talking about today, right? So Kiss was it was very dark, very occulted. Much of the music was very sexualized. That was their bag, and that's what they did. And they had it, like you said, they had a huge following. To this day, they have a huge following. They still have a huge following. That's why it's so hard to break it. I mean, you talked about when you were a kid, and I was a Beatle freak like you wouldn't believe. I love the Beatles. To this day, I love the Beatles. So, as a kid growing up, if my parents had come to me and said, "Well, we don't want you listening to Beatle music," I'm like, "That's not going to happen." I would, one way or another, I would still try to figure out a way that I could listen to Beatle music, But the thing is, that music back in the '60s, to a large degree, is very different than what we're talking about in subsequent decades, especially what we're talking about when we're talking about the music of today. It's very, very different. Back in that day, back in the '60s, we were still listening to a lot of songs that had to do with relationships. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy, boy breaks up with girl, and so on. It had a lot to do with love and relationships. But that's all really gone out the window now, and it's gotten very, very, as I mentioned before, it's very decadent. It's very dark. It's leading the kids down a path. It's not going to be a good journey.
Not only is it not going to be a good journey, it's certainly not going to prepare them for parenthood.
No.
They're not learning about love. They're not learning about caring. They're not learning about empathy. I mean, remember, the Beatles' first song was "I Want to Hold Your Hand."
Right.
How benign was that, right?
Right, but that's the thing. They don't want it. They don't want a family nucleus. They don't want, and this is what music is very powerful. So they know music is very powerful. If it wasn't, they wouldn't control it. So it's a major vehicle that they have in order to steer the collective consciousness. It's a huge vehicle in which to social engineer, and there are many, many aspects of the matrix that have looked to and have done actually a very good job of breaking down the family. Yeah. And music is playing its part as part of the tools that they have in their toolbox to do that. And to essentially to dehumanize humanity. You talked about there is no love. It's all about sex today. It's just sex. It's gratuitous sex. That's really what's played out many times, and not just in music, but in entertainment in general. Promiscuity is something that is rolled out there without the controllers blinking an eye. And the unfortunate part is, as we mentioned about the parenting and stuff like that, is that a lot of stuff is just it's allowed to just roll on down the highway and right up the doorstep and into the living rooms and into the households of the families, and it's having an effect. It's having a very big effect on the youth, and future generations are going to be, it's all programming, it's all mind control, and they're going to have a whole different set of values and beliefs than you and we wouldn't even recognize them. 5-10 years from now, there are going to be values and beliefs and stuff like that, Anita, that you and I we would not get it at all. And it won't be for the better.
And you combine that with Common Core.
Yeah.
And it's like the rug is being pulled out from under them. In other words, this isolation and this negativity will leave this gaping hole in their spirits. So they may act out negatively, or they may just absorb this internally. And hello, we've got happy drugs to give them, right? I mean, it's like they're undermining their sense of self-worth and value as well.
Right. Well, that's the thing. They don't want people to have self-worth, because if you have self-worth, you're going to be resilient, and you're going to be creative, and you're going to challenge, and you're going to critically think, and you're going to free think. They don't want that. They don't want that. It's like George Carlin had said, they want you just smart enough to work the machines. That's all that they want.
Yeah.
They don't want you walking around, being your own person. I just wanted to, we're talking about the kids here, so I just quickly, let me just take you through this. In particular, we're talking about rap and hip-hop here, but rap and hip-hop beats and lyrics are hypnotic in nature. So a lot of kids that are listening to this don't even realize it's the beat, it's the pounding beat, and then the way the lyrics, the cadence of the lyrics, it's hypnotic.
Oh,
so what
wow.
they're doing is, so the combination of that beat and the way the lyrics are played out, the way they're spoken, there's a trance state that sets in. And this is what hip-hop is doing. So hip-hop and rap came into being in the mid-1980s. And that was really like the birth of gangster rap. And it was like artists like NWA, Eazy-E, there was Snoop Dogg, Tupac, artists like that. But there was a couple of, actually it's more than a couple, but there was research that was done, mainstream research. This is very interesting from a psychology perspective, that where they said that violent song lyrics increase negative emotions and thoughts that can lead to aggression, according to a study that was published in the May issue of, this is 2003, of the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And then in 2006, there was a recent study back in 2006 by the Prevention Research Center of the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, it's in Berkeley, suggests that young people who listen to rap and hip-hop are more likely to abuse alcohol and commit violent acts.
Oh, wow.
Then in 2009, the American Academy of Pediatrics said that, and this is from their scientists, music plays an important role in the socialization of children and adolescents. So, okay, we know it plays an important role. Popular music is present almost everywhere and is easily available through the radio, various recordings, the internet, new technologies, etc. This allows adolescents to hear it in diverse settings and situations, whether alone or shared with friends. Then it goes on to say that research on popular music has explored its effects on schoolwork, social interactions, mood and effect, and particularly behavior. The effect that popular music has on children and adolescents' behavior and emotions is of paramount concern. This is the American Academy of Pediatrics saying this. Lyrics have become more explicit in their reference to drugs, sex, and violence over the years, particularly in certain genres. And the genre they're talking about is hip-hop and rap. A teenager's preference for certain types of music could be correlated or associated with certain behaviors. Research has reported that exposure to violence, sexual messages, sexual stereotypes, and use of substances of abuse in music videos might produce significant changes in behaviors and attitudes of young viewers. Pediatricians and parents should be aware of this information. This is on the American Academy of Pediatrics site. Furthermore, with the evidence portrayed in these studies, it is essential for pediatricians and parents to take a stand regarding music lyrics.
You know, I wish you'd send that to me. Would you send me a link and I'll post it to that? Because I think I could give that to my daughters. I've been trying to reach them, and I'm sure the listeners have called in, and the same story happens across the country.
Yeah.
We try to reach our children and say that the world isn't the way it was when you were in school. Your parents now, things have changed. Things are worse. Yep. They're much worse. You can't presume or assume that the world in which you grew up in is the world that your children are being subjected to. I have a hard time, and the listeners that have called in have shared with me, they also have a hard time convincing their adult children that something has changed.
It's all they know, Anita. It's all they know. It's like talking to an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old and saying to them, "Hey, they're spraying the skies with aerosols," and they look at you like, "What?" Because the only sky they have known have been skies with aerosols.
Yes.
So it's a very tough nut to crack. It really is. It's very, very difficult. And the reason why I read this was because I wanted the audience to understand that this isn't Mike and Anita making this stuff up. This isn't conjecture. There are mainstream medical and research and psychiatric organizations that have looked at this and have come to the conclusion, this is not good. This is not good. But the thing is to get people to wake up to this, to get them to even read this. And even if they read it, the problem is for a lot of people, it doesn't even soak in. Like it doesn't assimilate.
And if they do, here's the problem. In addition, and I know you're going to agree, let's just say they tell me, okay, I agree with you, Mom. This isn't good music for my kids. Now comes the next task. Well, what do we do about it? Now becomes even more difficult because exactly like you and I were when we were young, it's unlikely that the children are going to allow you to stand between them and their peers and their music. This becomes even increasingly more difficult.
It's important to teach kids good morals, good ethics, to teach them responsibility and accountability. And I know it's hard. I know I'm a father. My daughter's grown now, but I knew what it was like.
Right.
But the thing is, by keeping at it as hard as it can be, and it can be very, very hard as a parent, to stay on your kids and to make sure that they understand this stuff, because they're going to push back at every moment that they have. That's just the nature of kids, especially when they hit the teenage years. But what I found is that by just pounding it and doing it in a way which is not, you don't want to ridicule. You just want to make sure you continue to, you be a role model as a parent, number one. And you just explain to them. What I did with my daughter was I explained how the world really works. Yeah. And in the beginning, she was like, my father's crazy. My father's a lunatic, okay? But as more and more time went on, as she was getting more life experiences under her belt, she was starting to see that, hey, you know what? He might be onto something. He may not be as crazy as I think he is. And so what happened was, as my daughter, she got older, she grew up with a very good sense of right and wrong, grew up with a sense of responsibility and accountability. And today, she sees this stuff that we're talking about. She sees what happened to music. So I think that that's what has to happen. I think that the parents really have to get their heads in the game.
Okay, hold on. We're going to take a break and we'll come back and we'll take some calls. Welcome back to In Defense of Humanity. This is Al Whitney. Our guest tonight is Mike Williams, and he is a musician. He has many other qualities and talents. However, tonight we're plugging into his knowledge, his wonderful knowledge about music, including the impact it is having on our society. Mike, I've done a couple programs on these psychotropic medications that children are taking, that they're prescribing for children. And John Rappaport did a wonderful piece on what's going on college campuses and how it's becoming almost socially acceptable to be on these horrific drugs. Now, I'm sure you're aware these drugs have a high incidence of both violence and suicide. So it's really creepy if you think about the fact that they listen to this music from the time they're preteens practically and all through their teens. And if they start to feel emotionally distraught, and some doctor wants to prescribe medications, I mean, this whole thing looks like a train wreck to me.
We have a situation, Anita, where what they're doing is they're breaking down the mind-body dynamic every way that they can. So psychotropic drugs, meds, pharmaceuticals are an ace up their sleeve. And they're going to attempt to get as many people onto those drugs as they possibly can, and to get them on those drugs as early as they can in their life.
Yes.
We've got kids running around with Ritalin, right? I mean, but this kid is just being a kid. I mean, we were growing up, kids were kids. They ran around, they got a little rambunctious, whatever. Today, we have parents that have been conditioned to believe that your kid shouldn't do that. Your kid should somehow be dormant or docile and just sit there motionless.
Right.
We've got that. We've got, where they have the foods, right, with the GMOs and the processed foods. We have aspartame. We've got fluoride. We've got whatever it is they're spraying in the skies with the aerosols, with the geoengineering program. All of this stuff has an enormous effect on the human mind and the human body. And then you've got this mind and body which is broken down, a mind that can't critically think. It's foggy. It's easily programmable because of this, because it's not critically thinking and free thinking. And then you're taking this music and you're just pumping it into their heads. It's an all-out attack on humanity. And They have all the bases covered. And I know this sounds very dire, but it's the reality of the situation. I mean, this is what is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of us, we can see, I know I can, when my grandchildren, before they went into school, and we were in control of the music they listened to. And David Dees even did a wonderful image of it, showing the children preschool running around with big smiles and balloons and happy. And then the next stage, he had the children sitting in a classroom, and the image was gray, and they were all sullen, and they looked like zombies. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
That is what we're seeing. And I mentioned earlier, we had our conversation earlier about, if we use the example of the school systems, when they are short-funded, they don't have enough funding, the first thing they do is they go cut the arts.
Right.
They take out the theater program. They take out the music program. So what they're doing is they're taking out all the programs that have to do with the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain is all of your creativity and your imagination. And what they're leaving the kids with is the left side. The left side is all logic. It's your rationale. It's those types of processes, those types of functions. And they want everybody in a left brain society. They do not want you shifting over to that right side of your brain. They don't want you using creativity. They don't want you using your imagination. They don't want that.
Right.
They don't want, like I mentioned before, they don't want you to be a critical thinker. So this is what we see today. It's taking its toll on society. All anybody has to do is just take a look at what's going on in the world at any given moment, on any given day, and it's dysfunctional. It's totally dysfunctional. The problem is that you see it's dysfunctional, I see it's dysfunctional, and I know people that will tell me, well, that's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's not the way the world should be.
I know, but I do see, I live on a street in a suburb, and recently the houses kind of turned over, and lots of new young families have moved in. So there's preschool kids and maybe first and second graders all over the street, and it hasn't hit them yet. And they are just looking very happy. And it hasn't hit them yet. Their parents are out there with them. So the parents get the idea that there's nothing really bad going on because look out the door, everything's fine, right? And they don't necessarily want to know that there's something else in the wings. So this is going to be difficult. Can we take a call?
Sure.
Okay. Linda is from Ohio, my state. Linda, are you there? Sorry you had to wait.
That's okay. Hi, Buckeye. I wanted to hurry up and tell you, I had this is like 25 years ago, but I had an older stepson living with us, and he was not a good example for my younger children. But my husband was very, very astute. I mean, he took a lot of guff, but he made sure they didn't watch certain programs. I mean, they didn't even watch Beavis and Butthead. I mean, so he, unfortunately, it's the father that's going to lead the way, and where are they today? I wanted to tell you, I was going through my stepson's books. This was quite a while ago. He had all those hard rock books, and KISS, KISS stands for the Knights in the Service of Satan.
Oh, really?
You know, honest to God, I thought, oh my gosh. And another thing I wanted to point out, you mentioned about the dress. I mean, this is all planned out. I can't remember what book I read it in. If I ever find out, I'll email you. But they if you recall, when you were growing up, they had hemlines.
Right.
So you could lower the hemlines if you wanted to. Well, they don't have that anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and, all the way that the cuts are gone. And one more point, a good book I read quite a while ago, and I wish I'd known he was going to be on because I would have got it out, was Erica Carle, Give Us the Young. And she says, their own words, just don't worry about what the older people think, they'll be dead and this certain, but go to the young. And, if that's an excellent book, it might even be on the web. I don't know. And recently she wrote a book called The Hate Factory about how they're teaching children to hate.
Wow.
But, so, I guess information, to have it ready when somebody's able to, but, I get the same thing, it's a sign of the times. Oh, these are parents.
I know it. That's what I'm talking about. That's not the kids. It's
Right.
the parents who are telling me this.
I know. That's what makes me angry because we should be united, and unfortunately I don't get too much support because, everybody says, well, I'll see you on the other side. Like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? I know what it means, but I'd love to hear, what's your guest's name again?
Mike Williams.
Mike. I'd love to hear sometime how you explain to your daughter how the world works. But anyway, I'll leave it go at that. I thought there was one more point, but it's escaped my mind. Okay, well, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling, Linda. Yeah. Maybe we could have you on and you could do that one show,
I
Tell
could
us-
give like a parenting show.
Yes, how the world works. And have them actually listen to us. That would be good,
Yeah, I wasn't sure she was listening to me, Anita, It wasn't until years later I figured out that it was kind of like sinking in, So, yeah, that was a good call.
Okay, we have another caller. This one's from Indiana. I lived in Indiana, too. Keith, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I was going to say about that KISS. I heard that too, the acronym, Knights in Satan Service. Well, may or may not be true, but it's true anyway because it fits.
The music industry makes it popular. They make it popular because that's what they market. That's what they put out there. So they decide that KISS is going to be popular. So they're going to make sure that KISS is marketed and it's branded, and that their records are going to make it onto the radio stations and so on. All the bands that made it very, very big, all of those bands, they had the backing and the money to get them to where these record labels and the controllers where they wanted them to be, and they wanted them to be where they were because they were serving a purpose as far as moving the agenda forward.
Did you guys ever listen to Three Dog Night?
Yeah.
I thought they were fairly benign. Were they benign?
I have to admit, I liked a lot of Three Dog Night's music. I would say that they were probably more benign than some of the other bands we've discussed, like KISS and so on.
Coast to coast. But you know who they're bringing back in concert in this little place called Fort Wayne, Indiana? Three Dog Night, Aretha Franklin. You got Beach Boys.
Those are bands out of Laurel Canyon. So I don't know, Anita, if you know about Laurel Canyon, but Three Dog Night came out of Laurel Canyon, as did the Mamas and the Papas, the Turtles, the Eagles, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, the Monkees, the Beach Boys, the Doors, Joni Mitchell,
Jimmy
James
Morrison,
Taylor, Carole King. Yeah, they all came out of Laurel Canyon, and so
And they all came out of military families.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah, well, I got something more important. If you really want to do research, and I know you know this, you need to understand Tavistock Institute, the RAND Corporation. They're two main conduits, Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Stanford.
Okay,
State.
Keith, hang in there and let Mike talk about Tavistock, because the listeners may not know about that. Tavistock does come into this, doesn't it, Mike?
Yeah, well, Tavistock first came into being in 21. It was the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, and it was in 1947, it just became the Tavistock Institute. And it refers to itself as an independent, not-for-profit organization, and it seeks to combine research in the social sciences and professional practice. But Tavistock, what Tavistock is into is mass brainwashing, and they have ties back to British Freemasonry. It's headquartered in London. They have repeatedly, ever since its inception, experimented in crowd control methods. A lot of it has been used on the American public. There's one factoid here that I found very interesting, that it says that the Tavistock Institute has developed such power in the U.S. that no one achieves prominence in any field unless he has been trained in behavioral science at Tavistock or one of its subsidiaries. And the gentleman on the phone had mentioned Stanford. That's the Stanford Research Institute. We also have MIT, the Hudson Institute, the Heritage Foundation. The tentacles of Tavistock is enormous, and the role that they play is very, very significant.
Well, yeah, and their connection with the Rand Corporation. Now, the Rand Corporation came up with this new thing called consensus science, and you probably already know this.
Yeah, it's pseudoscience, yeah.
It's pseudoscience, but again, we're talking mind control, because when you take it apart and look at the way the pseudoscience, consensus science is created, you'll see it's just a well-organized scam of getting a bunch of people together, manipulating the meeting and their minds, and then, putting out a result that has nothing to do with truth, but it makes them think that they participated.
But that's exactly how psychiatry works, right? It's all done by consensus.
Yes.
Think about that, right? Everything is consensus. It's all about a bunch of elites that get together, sit around a table, and they decide what it is that they want to put in play and what's not going to be put in play. It's not science. They call it science, but it's not science.
No, it's pseudoscience. You're absolutely right. And they have this technique of duping the scientists into believing that this is science. And I'm amazed that they fall for it again and again and again, but they do.
Well, nobody questions it because people are conditioned to obey authority. Even when you're a kid, we're talking about kids before, and you're in school, they say you need to obey authority.
Yes.
And keep your mouth shut, be quiet,
right.
Speak when you're spoken to. So this is all conditioning and indoctrination that takes place at a very early age. And as people get old and they become adults, what they do is, whenever they come up against a quote-unquote authority figure, like you and I spoke earlier, Anita, about the medical industry and doctors and so on. If somebody has a white coat and a stethoscope, you're basically taught to keep your mouth shut and do whatever the doctor tells you to do. Don't question anything.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the authority complex that people have.
It is absolutely true. And they need that. They need us not to question. And what's so interesting is in public, they're even more upset if we question. So they teach these people how to neutralize the truth seekers or those who might tell the truth at a public forum. Right. They're prepared ahead of time as to how to handle these comments. I'm amazed that they take a list of everything that's said and then they come up with a way to combat it so that the general audience doesn't actually take into account what that comment was or what it meant. Have you noticed that?
It's herd mentality. It's herd mentality. People, first of all, very few people want to step out and be brave and speak their mind. People would rather just be huddled within the herd and just be kind of like, I just want to blend in. I don't want to make waves. I don't want to say something that might sound stupid, And so what they're doing is they're suppressing their common sense. They're suppressing their innate understanding that they should say something, that, this is not right, or to question something, But they just don't do it. They just kind of like cower down and shuffle along and just, go along to get along.
That's true.
What happens is they look to, as I mentioned earlier, to break the mind-body dynamic down as soon as they can. And they will do that as soon as the child is born. Now think about, we get into this, I know we've probably ventured a little bit off the music topic here, but vaccines, right? And I know this is something that I know you know all about, but think about what they've done to that baby. By the time the baby is 5 or 6 with vaccines, what do you think they're doing with those vaccines?
Yeah,
they're introducing foreign substances into the body, and a baby's body can't deal with that. And that's why we have the children today. There's so many issues, and I know a lot of people don't agree. They think that it's bogus that we have a connection between vaccines and disorders. I don't know. I mean, here's my take on it. I think we should investigate it, and I think we need to research it so that we can conclude on it. I think that just to say that there is no connection, that's not an answer. That's not an appropriate answer.
Well, I'm glad you're concerned about it. We have talked about it, done many shows on it. I do have another website for people who aren't aware of it, and it's parentsagainstmandatoryvaccines.net. I have a lot of information on that website about vaccines and the big scam, the big lies that are being told. And basically, we're saying vaccines are the biggest lie Big Pharma ever sold. So, however, going back, I mean, a lot of parents used to, Mike, they used to listen to music when the mothers were pregnant. Do you remember that? There was a time I remember that everybody, I don't know, it seemed like it was so popular to try to put beautiful music next to the fetus during pregnancy. And I always thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, well, music can be very soothing.
Yeah.
If it's the right music, right? We talked about one of our previous conversations before the show, Anita, about 432 hertz versus 440 hertz.
Yes.
Tuning.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, this plays right into that. There has been research that has been done that says that 432 hertz has huge benefits to the human and to animals. They'll say that music lovers and musicians have noticed that music tuned to 432 hertz, the note A, 432 hertz, is not only more beautiful and harmonious to the ears, but it also induces a more inward experience that is felt inside the body, at the spine and the heart. So in other words, it's contained inside. It's coming from the heart, and you can feel it. It's resonating with you at a soul perspective. Yes. Whereas with 440, what they found is that it's more outward and it's a mental experience, and it was felt actually at the side of the head and then projected outward. So in other words, what we're saying here is 432 is inward, 440 is out.
Well, if we start listening to more organic music, will that bring us back to that?
Not necessarily, because the whole 440 hertz now has become a standard, and this was done by the International Standards Organization, ISO, when it was promoted back in 1953. So unless the musician himself is aware of 432, you're probably going to hear 440.
Okay. We'll be back shortly. And we're talking to Mike Williams, and we do have callers, but could you say that again, Mike? I'm not sure I understand. I don't know if the listeners understand there's an international, how did that go down? I mean, what is that?
I don't know. I don't know the specifics behind it, Anita, only that in the 1950s, there was a standard that was put in place. It was promoted by ISO, the International Standards Organization. And,
and it had to do with sound?
Yeah, tuning the A note to 440 hertz versus 432. So this is kind of interesting, right? When you think about it, so you would think, well, why does it make a difference how music tunes to the note A? Who cares if it's 440, 430, 432, 465? Who cares? You see, that's another clue in my mind that something under the covers is taking place here. Because the one thing that the audience has to understand is that the people who are in positions of controlling, the puppet masters, whatever you want to call them, they have an incredible understanding of how the human mind works and how the human body works. And, if you go back to a quote, see if I can get this right, from Nikola Tesla, right? He said something to the effect, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And Tesla said this. Right. So humans, right? That includes humans. So this tweaking and adjusting and of frequency, and as an example, 440 hertz versus 432, I have a hard time believing that just happened. There had to be some kind of push to make it happen. And so so ISO said 1953. When you tune to A, 440 hertz. Now I know, like, I play guitar, so I have tuners, and the tuners default to 440. You could tune to 432, but it defaults to 440.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so interesting. Okay. We have another caller. We have Kevin from Washington. Kevin, are you there?
This is a brilliant program. I don't know where to begin, whether religion or the sonic vibrations of listening to natural sounds when you're in your woman's womb. But well music, ocean sounds. When I was starting college back in the 70s, I worked with a lot of rock bands that passed through town. Working with the roadies. We're talking Jethro Tull, the Egos, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, Hall & Oates,
Wow.
Earth, Wind and Fire. Earth, Wind and Fire, those guys were brilliant. And the reason being, they had a pulse on the planet. And this gets back to what your guest was saying, Mike. Now, what I think what happened is things went from analog to digital. And things got mechanized. When I was working down in Los Angeles in the studios, I saw it happen at the speed of light, dealing with all the equipment. And this thing about the ISO standard from the 1953, if you want to study what really happened with the 440 hertz, there was a movie with Schoenberg, I think was a classical artist, Woman in Gold. It had to do with artistic work that was being stolen by the Nazis. Woman in Gold, really classic historical docudrama. But it's all coming full circle. But the Rand Corporation, the Laurel Canyon, I'm a military brat. But working with those artists in the 70s taught me to work hard, play hard, follow your heart, and travel. And I think what's happened is when people are traveling, they're dealing with their silly-ass phones. I'm sorry to use that phrase, but everything became digital. So what happened with music? It's the MIDI Corporation. You're an artist. The gentleman that's you're hosting with, Mike Williams. He knows what I'm talking about. MIDI, the musical instrument digital interface, 31.25 kilobits optical isolated. Now that's what revolutionized music. Now, getting back to the artists, what happened with the guys that split the scene from the Beatles? When they did their solo album, they were able to not have to sell their soul. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison, they left the record industry and did their solo album. And you saw it in their music, or heard it too. Just their album art as well as the lyrics. That's all I'm going to say. But working with those folks in the early 70s and seeing how things got mechanized really, really hit ahead with you. This is a great program, and I rarely call into talk radio programs, but I really enjoyed this show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. That was great. Yeah, I mean, we haven't even talked about what happened when they went digital, Mike.
Yeah, well, that's something that a lot of audiophiles have picked up on. When we went from vinyl, analog to CDs to digital, many folks that were audiophiles picked up the difference in sound immediately. They said that the analog sound was warm and natural. The digital sound was cold and sterile. And that's what we have today. So we have this very cold digital format. It has a sterility to it. I mean, I can pick up on it. I still have a huge collection of vinyl records, Anita, a huge collection. I still play a lot of vinyl.
Wow.
So, people have picked up on this. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, about the music, and you had mentioned about the child being in the womb and the mother playing the music. And I don't know if you're familiar with cymatics, which is Dr. Emoto had performed studies showing, I think he passed away now, but he had performed studies showing how simple intentions through sound, emotions, and thoughts can dramatically shape the way that water crystallizes.
Mm-hmm.
So he had shown that sound, as an example, that is harsh. What happened was the crystallization of the water, or if there were words that were used that were not loving, let's say you had the word hate, the crystallization of the water would deform, and it would be very unattractive and ugly looking. Whereas if the sounds that were used were pleasant, tuned to certain frequencies, or the words that were used, like love, empathy, compassion, were used, then when the water crystallized, it crystallized into a very, very beautiful geometric pattern.
Wow.
And since our bodies are 70% water,
Yes.
that would make perfect sense that the vibrational frequency of the music, if it's the right frequency, can be extremely beneficial, not only to the mother, but to the child. And that frequencies that do not resonate properly, or they are the incorrect frequencies, could cause disturbances. So the caller had a great point. It was a great point.
I thought so too. Wonderful information. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I can't remember where I read this, but I could probably locate it if I had to, that you can use music. Your plants grow better if they hear classical music. That if you want your crops and your plants to grow well, it helps if you play music and that's audible outside. And classical music, absolutely, they grow better. However, if you were going to play something like Kiss, it would retard their growth, that they are sensitive. And I don't know if it's the vibrations, I don't know what, but they are sensitive to the kind of music that's in the air around them. Now, have you heard that too?
I have heard that. I mean, there's no way that I know of to validate it, but it goes back to the quote I had about from Nikola Tesla, which said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It's all connected. See, it's all connected. This is another thing that people fail to understand. They think everything is detached and disconnected. You are connected to the earth.
Yes.
Humans are part of the earth. Yes. Everything is connected energetically. So, when you understand that, then it does make perfect sense when you're playing the right music. Or I remember they would say, speaking to your plants, that
yes.
the plants would respond, right? And the reason why is because your voice has a frequency.
Yes.
So, that's why it was happening. So, a lot of people think that this stuff is just out there and it's just they roll their eyes and so on. But, I kind of feel bad for those folks, to be honest with you, because those people are not understanding that they are disconnected. And once you understand that it's all attached and it's all part of one big package, then you'll start to understand in a big way how things work.
Well, and I think some people might remember the research of Cleve Baxter, who put a lie detector probe on a plant and found out that if he thoughts about burning the leaf of the plant, he got this erratic. Yes. I mean, and he did a lot more. He actually set up an institution. I don't think it survived, but he was learning a lot about this in a very positive way.
Yep. Yep. I heard about that study.
Yeah. And our world is so much more amazing than we know. It blows your mind, really.
I think about what's happening. The world is being destroyed, right? It's being destroyed. It's the beauty and the connectedness is all being eradicated. It's being taken out. It's through GMOs. It's through fertilizers that are contaminated, through pesticides, through the aerosol spraying program. I understood. I was reading an article several months back where they were selling fracking water to California so that they can water they take care of the farms. Fracking water.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so you have in California, you've got food coming out of California saying, oh, it's organic. Yeah, except for the fact that we watered it with fracking water.
Oh my gosh. Well,
yeah. So
there's no reason that the listeners can't play classical music for their plants. In other words, in spite of the fact that these things are going down, this is a challenge. The challenge is to see how much energy we can whip up to counter this horrific attack on humanity. We certainly can't give up. I know you agree with that.
No, you don't give up. You don't give up. See, here's the thing. Once you see it for what it is, you can't go back.
No.
You can't go back. You can't get back on the merry-go-round because it's not real. And you realize what it is that they're doing. And so once you realize it, then you're on a completely different path, and you just don't give up. People always ask me that. They'll say, well, how do you continue to do what you do? I mean, aren't you concerned about some of the shows that you do and some of the stuff that you talk about? Like, no. Well, what am I supposed to do? Sit there and cower in a corner?
No, I totally agree. And the more of us we don't know how strong we are. I still believe in the 100th monkey thing. So we don't need everybody. We just need a hardcore group that's not going to give up. I mean, that's how I feel about it. Well, we have another caller. We probably have, Sovereign Freedom Land. We have a few minutes. Let's hear.
Thank you for taking my call.
Pardon?
I said thank you for taking my call.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been a while. Just want to plug just one thing that right now is in the defense of humanity.chattango.com
Oh, okay.
chat room. There are a lot of links in there. There's one in there about Masaru Emoto, about gratitude. Now, we are frequency, whether people realize it or not. We are frequency. We resonate, and we connect to the earth because we're of the earth. We can take the music that we have. There's a program that's free. You can get it online. It's called Audacity. And you can reconfigure the hertz to 432 and play whatever you want in 432.
Oh, wow. I have that program.
Yeah, it'll let you change the hertz on the recording to 432.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So glad you called in. We're not going to be able to talk much more Sovereign Man, because I wanted to give the final message tonight and thank Mike. But that was fabulous information. I'm so glad you called. Mike, I finish up the show every week. The last 5 minutes is an organic band called Inca Gold out of South America. I ran into them at the fairgrounds, at several fairgrounds. They make their own music. They market their own music. I can go to their website and buy their music. They don't have a distributor. They managed to get someone who would cut the CDs for the DVDs for them. And I recommend them. And I invite everyone to listen to this beautiful recording of Inca Gold's, and use the power of your heart and your spirit to image the kind of world that we deserve, that our children deserve, that Mother Earth actually created for us before this horrific attack on us. And I'm glad we had Mike tonight, because I understand more about this music and these frequencies. Mike, we're going to have you back, because I think we may not have covered the whole topic.
Anytime, Anita. This was great. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I still believe that the music and these frequencies are important for our spirit. And we are at war, as you said. We are under attack, and we need to fortify ourselves and continue to find joy in our world, or this would become almost mission impossible. This is what we have been known to call balance. And we have to maintain balance if we're going to be strong warriors against this horrific attack. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. And one of the things I always tell folks is that it's not all just heads down. You do have to take a step back. You have to pause. You have to enjoy your life. Enjoy your time with your family, with your friends. Spend time with your children and do those things. And you do have the ability to do that, and also to have the awakening and the awareness, and to go after the bad guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. They don't like us to be creative, because it's amazing how many people have actually been able to create solutions or counter what they're doing. And they're trying to suppress these creations, as you know, free energy being one of them. Yep. So we haven't lost our creativity. We still have a real hardcore group of creative people. They're still on our planet. And in my opinion, they're still working to benefit mankind. And they're like you. They're working relentlessly. They don't have any intention of quitting.
No, never quit.
Never quit. Okay, folks. I'm so glad. Thank you, Mike. Listen to the music, people, and we'll be back next week.
Sometimes I feel so tired, but today I feel so wired. And I look through my crystal ball. All I see is that wall. So many people are standing still, drifting away. They lost their will. I just want to shake them, give them ears. Wake up, stop living in fear. You are human. You are a beautiful soul. You are one with creation. Come on, get up, let's go. Sometimes I feel so cheated, but today I won't be defeated. I cut the chains and I break free. Open your eyes and you will see. You are human. You are a beautiful soul. You are one with creation. Come on, get up, let's go. We are here to live and learn. Another life, another turn. Don't be afraid to shine. Don't be afraid to open your mind. You are human. You are a beautiful soul. You are one with creation. Come on, get up, let's go. You are a beautiful soul.